I'm still, after all the fights you've had, in awe of the fact that you do what you do. It's mind-blowing to me.
Thank you, man. Yeah. I mean, it's not that hard to get to beat, but it was a great experience. Like, I learned a lot in there. I can't really talk.
When this fight was first announced, you had said something to the effect of this would end Jake Paul's career. After what you saw tonight, do you think that Jake should continue to box, or what do you think the future holds for him?
Yeah, no, I really take my hat off. So, I mean, we have to see if it is a broken jaw. Those injuries are very difficult to come back from. But as AJ said, like that last shot would have knocked out a lot of heavyweights.
Check this out. Jake Paul just walked away from boxing after Anthony Joshua completely destroyed him in round 6 down in Miami. The damage was so bad it left Paul with his jaw shattered in 2 separate places, requiring emergency surgery. This 28-year-old stepped into that ring thinking he could hang with the absolute best fighters in the world. What he got instead was Joshua's crushing right hand that didn't just stop the fight but might have ended his entire boxing dream. Even after all that punishment, Paul somehow still believed he took a few rounds and called it some kind of win.
And then I got dropped. But yeah, I was doing good. I just think my cardio, just the mental pressure of the big guy and sparring the big people is different than the 10-ounce gloves. So I was feeling his power a lot more. But it was a great experience. Like, I learned a lot in there. I can't really
Are you in pain?
Yeah, but it's not from like talking.
Talk to me about what your jaw feels like, because you got
It's like a baseball in there.
two plates?
It just feels like
4 titanium plates.
4 titanium plates. How many do you have?
Just 1.
8. Word on the street is Paul has completely had it with taking beatings like this, and is genuinely considering walking away from the sport entirely after that brutal knockout. The fight had him eating canvas over and over before that final devastating blow that destroyed his jaw and sent him straight to surgery. When you absorb that level of damage from one of boxing's most feared heavyweights, it makes everyone question whether this is where the story ends. Paul reportedly made it clear that he's finished with boxing and done taking punishment like this.
In face every single day, while I could be playing soccer in Saudi. I'm friends with the Saudis slash football.
Back in the day?
I was on the A team in 7th grade. I have a really good kick. I can run fast.
Eddie Hearn went all in on his prediction and got even more real after witnessing what went down. His warning that this fight might end Jake Paul's career completely turned out to be spot on. Hearn broke down how injuries this severe don't just damage you physically, but mess with your mental game in ways that can be impossible to recover from. This becomes even more critical when you're still fighting to prove yourself among elite competition. He explained how avoiding sparring sessions, constantly worrying about re-injury, and losing your rhythm can permanently destroy a fighter's trajectory. While Hearn gave Jake full respect for his bravery and determination, he emphasized that boxing shows no mercy, and situations like this frequently force fighters to walk away, questioning if the damage is worth it.
Eddie, I want to follow with you because when this fight was first announced, you had said something to the effect of this would end Jake Paul's career. After what you saw tonight, do you think that Jake should continue to box, or what do you think the future holds for him?
Yeah, no, I really take my hat off. So, I mean, we have to see if it is a broken jaw. Those injuries are very difficult to come back from. But as AJ said, like that last shot would have knocked out a lot of heavyweights. And I know he went down heavy, but you know he was conscious on the floor. And I thought his game plan, although obviously very negative early on, which it had to be, was smart at times. And there were times where he held his feet and let his hands go. You know, it was a very one-sided fight. It was always going to be a one-sided fight. But you can't give him anything but credit and respect. There's a lot of negative people out there. There's a lot of people who want to criticise people. They're not doing what Jake Paul's done. He just went in with Anthony Joshua and gave it his best shot. Took a lot of punishment and ended the fight eventually.
Joe Rogan was brutally honest about Jake Paul's knockout and shattered jaw, urging the content creator turned boxer to think long and hard about what pushing forward in this sport could cost him down the road. Rogan emphasized that the punishment Paul absorbed from a genuine heavyweight destroyer like Joshua carries risks that extend far beyond the immediate injuries, cautioning that some prices simply aren't worth paying. He's discussed the chronic issues countless fighters face after hanging up their gloves, and characterized the shot that floored Paul as having the force force of several punches rolled into one. Rogan's message went beyond this single fight, serving as a serious warning that repeatedly taking this kind of punishment can create irreversible damage, forcing Paul to weigh whether continuing is worth that gamble.
Look, that guy did great for someone who's been boxing for like less than a decade. He has had no real professional opponents other than Tommy Fury that were legitimate world-class boxers.
I don't even remember what happened in the Tommy.
He lost a close decision, but it was a good fight. It was a good fight, though. He's a good boxer. If he wasn't a YouTuber, people would be way more impressed with him.
Yeah.
The problem is he was like a famous kid, and then no one took him seriously.
Yeah.
But
and then he started too with like more spectacle-ish fights. People were like, "Oh, this is you." He fought, Nate Robinson, like a basketball player.
But the thing is, he knocked Nate Robinson
knocked him
dead,
the fuck out,
and
yeah.
it's the way he did it that I was trying to tell people. I'm like, no, that was.
Rumors are swirling that Paul might openly embrace steroid use to silence everyone who's been claiming he was already using performance-enhancing substances. According to online chatter and unofficial reports, Paul allegedly stated he'd demonstrate the real difference to prove his earlier physique and achievements were completely clean. Some view this idea as reckless and attention-seeking, while his supporters see it as Paul finally pushing back against constant speculation about his physical transformation and power improvements. Given boxing's strict anti-doping regulations and harsh consequences for PED violations, most observers remain skeptical and advise against taking these claims seriously. Until Paul personally addresses this directly and officially, it remains unverified gossip, adding more chaos to an already turbulent period.
Jake said that I snort, that I'm a cokehead. My rebuttal to that was, I'll tell you what, you can test me randomly for the next 5 years for if I can test you randomly for performance enhancing the next 2 years, and I never got a response on that.
This is why Jake Paul is on PEDs. Within this past year, Jake Paul has literally hit a second puberty and aged like 10 years. Furthermore, he has acne and his hairline is receding like crazy. And people like Jake Paul are going to the best skin doctors in the world and probably are taking hair loss products that aren't even approved for the rest of us. Now, I'm not saying that Jake Paul necessarily took a steroid to make him look bigger, but he's definitely taking something that allows him to recover faster. That way he's able to train more and get better at boxing quickly.
Anderson Silva stepped up to defend Jake Paul following the Anthony Joshua beatdown, insisting that people need to recognize Jake's courage for accepting a challenge this dangerous. Silva stressed that Paul demonstrated his willingness to face genuine competition rather than cherry-picking weak opponents, and that simply agreeing to battle a former heavyweight champion of the world commands respect from the boxing community. Silva argued that critics who dismissed Paul's earlier bouts can't continue claiming he avoided elite fighters when he stepped up against someone with Joshua's pedigree, no matter how the fight concluded.
The people need to respect him. I don't say that only because I'm fight here in a company, but it's because Jake, the people need to respect Jake, I mean, every single fight go inside the ring, everybody need respect.
Anthony Joshua's bone-crushing right hand obliterated Jake Paul's jaw in 2 separate places during that 6th-round combination that produced the knockdown and knockout ending. The impact created a double fracture that became apparent immediately after the contest concluded, with Paul later acknowledging the full scope of the injury. After the bout, Paul was transported directly to the hospital, where surgeons worked to repair both fractures, inserting 2 titanium plates on either side of his jaw and extracting multiple teeth throughout the operation. He posted an update confirming the surgery went smoothly and noted he'd be limited to liquid nutrition for roughly a week during recovery.
Don't ever give a monkeys about what anyone says, because they sit at home, they're full of negativity. It's like the people that are negative towards someone like Jake Paul. Look at what he's done with his life. Do you know what I mean? So yes, it took AJ a couple of rounds to get hold of him, and then he knocked him spark out and broke his jaw. It was a frustrating 2-3 rounds maybe, because Jake was moving so much, holding, but did well, I thought. I mean, I was impressed with him. I mean, I was more impressed with his toughness, because I think that last shot would have knocked out most heavyweights. I mean, you've got to respect him, because he did what many people wouldn't do, which was get in the ring with him. And, he didn't, I know he run and hold, but he also let his hands go at times. And he was in the firing line, and, we got 6 good rounds in the end. Of actual work.
You see it in the end?
Yeah, I actually think it's a positive, because, we could have gone in there and got it all over with 45 seconds. He's done an 8-week camp, and now he's done 6 rounds. He's got something to go back and work on with the team, and onwards and upwards for a big 2026.
The brutal 6th round knockout that Anthony Joshua landed on, Jake Paul proved definitively this was a real fight and not some scripted entertainment like countless people online had been claiming. Promoter Eddie Hearn dismissed any suggestions the bout was predetermined, explaining it was an official professional contest with actual stakes supervised by boxing authorities and open for legitimate wagering, which would make any fixed outcome both criminal and impossible. Hearn also pointed to the genuine severity of Paul's double jaw fracture and required surgery as evidence that nobody stages that type of injury in an authentic competition.
Damn, son. Fuck me. How did Jake Paul actually remain conscious after that? And yeah, he got a broken jaw in 2 different places. And when they zoomed in on his mouth inside after the fight, a row of his teeth had just been dislodged into a whole nother fucking section of his mouth. Whatever you think of Jake Paul, surely that now puts an end to the fixed fight narrative. Like, his mouth is in bits. This was not a fixed fight. No matter how much you dislike it, it was what it was. So how did he do? Well, on the one hand, Jake fucking Paul, the YouTube guy who started by fighting Deji, getting in a ring with AJ is just impressive to start off with. He made it 6 rounds, and when he was getting hurt, he kept getting up, and he showed heart. You know, it probably would have been easy to stay down and not get your teeth shoved into your fucking back of your head. And a lot of people are saying, look, he lasted longer than Francis Ngannou, so that's something. But why did he last longer than Francis Ngannou? Obviously, I think we all know why. Francis Ngannou came into the ring with the belief he could win. He was trying to win from the first bell. Jake Paul was more trying to survive and hope that like a miracle happens in the fight sometime. And when you've got those completely different states of mind, it delivers completely different results, right? Francis is right there in front of you. He's trying to hurt you. He's committing. He's leaving openings because he's committing. The other guy is halfway across the fucking ring. And when one guy isn't wanting to engage, it's really hard to pin them down and hurt them because they're not basically contributing to the sport. You know, we're supposed to be fighting each other, not, you know, you running away from me and me having to run after you. And we've seen this before in other boxing matches. It just makes it a very difficult night for the guy who's trying to be the aggressor, especially when you've got a ring that big and the guy who you're fighting is much smaller.
Fans have begun drawing crazy parallels between Jake Paul and Francis Ngannou based on how each one handled Anthony Joshua. One social media comment from Blonde MMA framed it like this: everyone's overlooking the actual takeaway here. What this proved is that Jake Paul isn't just a better boxer than Francis Ngannou, he potentially stacks up against Tyson Fury. Remember, Francis survived 2 rounds against AJ, Jake went 6. These responses highlight how Paul's 6-round performance, despite losing via knockout with a shattered jaw, lasted considerably longer than Ngannou's earlier 2nd-round defeat to Joshua. Some fans point to this as evidence that Paul demonstrated superior toughness in that specific battle. Paul's capacity to continue fighting longer even with his fractured jaw was cited by his supporters as proof he might possess greater durability or grit than Ngannou when confronting championship-level boxing competition.
There is a reason why Jake Paul lasted longer than Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou came to fight. That's it. It was like Jake was stuck in 2020 the way he stayed 2 meters away from Joshua at all times. Jake was nowhere near Joshua's range. Nowhere near. Francis was very near. He came to box him. Jake just came in there to survive. That's all it was. He just wanted to see the end bell. He maybe land a lucky overhand right, which he did land a couple. Eventually, when the distance was closed, due to Jake not running, due to him being tired, boom, the knockout came. That's all it was. I don't want to hear people say, oh, he did better than Francis, because he didn't, because Francis was in boxing range, and Jake might as well have been in the stadium across the road.
Alexander Usyk's manager Sergey Lapin praised Joshua's showing as a solid performance in his comeback after time away from competition, calling it a quality bout that could lead to massive fights later this year against elite heavyweights like Tyson Fury. Lapin credited Paul for his toughness in climbing back to his feet after getting dropped repeatedly, noting the former content creator showed genuine courage despite facing a far more devastating professional puncher, with Joshua's power ultimately making the difference. Regarding upcoming contests, Lapin suggested that a Joshua vs Fabio Wardley fight would be intriguing considering Wardley's skill and knockout ability, and he repeated his belief that Joshua would defeat Fury if they met next year. Concerning Usyk's future schedule, he disclosed his team is negotiating a potential bout with Deontay Wilder possibly around June or July, although details were still being worked out.
Pro boxing fans here with Sergey Lapin. Sergey, Anthony Joshua stopping Jake Paul tonight. He had a message for Tyson Fury. greedy belly. What did you make of that?
Nice fight. Before 1 year, not work, not training, and now today this first step. Yes, maybe second step. One more opponent, one more fight, and maybe we see fight Fury and AJ in September, November. I don't know. It's good fight.
Yeah, what did you think of Jake Paul's performance in there? He kept getting up, showed bravery. What did you make of Jake Paul?
For me, I like this guy good. This guy five years training boxing in is have big heart. He stand up 3 times and stand up and fight. This not AJ punch very strong.
What about, obviously Usyk is no longer WBO champion. Could we see AJ and Fabio Wardley now?
This is good fight. I think this is good fight. Fabio, good boxer, good puncher. I think this is nice fight.
Lastly, Tyson Fury, if he fights Joshua next year, what happens?
I think AJ win.
Any update with Usyk Wilder?
We working maybe June, July.
Where could that be? Here?
I think I don't know. Maybe USA, maybe Saudi. No, it's working.
Former world champion Carl Froelich didn't hold back with his thoughts on the Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight, suggesting that matchups like this have turned boxing into what he called circus territory. Froelich had previously blasted Joshua's choice to fight a social media personality instead of premier contenders, arguing it damages the sport's credibility and even hurts Joshua's own reputation, declaring that facing internet celebrities doesn't represent the competitive level demanded from top heavyweights. Though he might not have used those precise terms about the fight being shameful directly, Froesh's overall stance made it obvious he views celebrity crossover bouts as harmful to boxing's integrity and tradition.
The job in 6 rounds, got Jake Paul out of there, dropped him. I think he got stopped on his feet, counted out, knocked out, whatever, however you want to call it. It wasn't a bad knockout. It wasn't an El Sparko. He wasn't rendered unconscious, but he got done. He got it on the chin. He went over. He didn't beat the count. He was sort of up on his feet. But if I'm honest, the whole fight was terrible, wasn't it? It was just so bad. It was just shit, wasn't it? A proper bad fight for AJ. And let me start with AJ. AJ was following him around the ring a little bit, sort of pouring with a jab, putting the jab on the shoulder of Jake Paul, sort of putting him in the corner and not really pulling the trigger on the right hand. He didn't seem to be motivated to go in there and just smash Jake Paul into oblivion in the first 1 or 2 rounds, which I think he could have done. But he's been out of the ring 15 months, a bit slow on his feet, a bit ring rust maybe, and it's hard. When I used to spar novice amateurs, even when I was a world champion pro, if you're not motivated, sometimes you can have a couple of bad rounds and you're sort of looking at your opponent and a jab hits you or right hand hits you. And I think AJ was in a bit of a daze early on, just walking him around, touching the jab on his shoulder, not really pulling the trigger on the right hand. Didn't look like he got out of first gear. Jake Paul was just on pure survival mode from round 1 right through to round 6. I don't know if he's got a moral victory going 6 rounds. Maybe he has. People might give him credit for going 6 rounds. But he got in there and just survived. He just went in there and ran like a chicken from round 1 right through to round 6 when he got splattered. And it's like, it's just, you can't really justify what he's done, because this is supposed to be a professional sanctioned boxing match. And I think it brings the integrity of the sport down when somebody like AJ, is a 2-time world champion, can't get in there and just completely dismiss somebody like Jake Paul, who I've said for ages can't fight. He's not a professional boxer. It's just AJ following him around, touching him to the shoulder. Round 1 came and went. Round 2 was much of the same, bit slow. I think AJ got caught with an overhand right at one stage, but sometimes when you're out in the rain, you're going to get wet.
What do you think about everything that went down? Should Jake Paul step away from boxing permanently after that crushing knockout loss to Anthony Joshua, or do you believe he still has some fight left in him? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.